All right. Hello, everybody. For any returning listeners, if you are listening to this for the very first time, hello, my name is Hardiel Pinto, and I am the owner of my own small little distribution company where I distribute a lot of movie serials and pulp themed movies. This is the third interview in a series I'm doing where I ask somebody that I admire, that I follow on social media, and I bring them here for about a half an hour and basically force them to be my friend. So today, I have one of the co-hosts of OffScreenBabble. Want to say hello?
Hi.
Okay, how do I properly pronounce your name? Sorry, I just gotta.
Yes, it's pronounced Sade. It does not look like that's how it's pronounced, but yeah, that's how you pronounce it.
Okay, I just didn't want to get it wrong. I forgot to
No,
ask before we got started. I was like,
no,
oh
totally
no.
fine. Yeah, it's pronounced Sade.
Okay, cool. Because I have that problem all the time where people don't pronounce my name correctly. So I'm like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Ooh, are you still there? Sorry, I looked
Oh,
like it froze for a second.
oh, hello.
Okay, good. No, sorry, just it looked like it froze for a second on my end, so I was like, "Oh wait, no, did it?"
Oh, no, no, I'm good.
Because
I'm
that's
good.
that's what happened yesterday too. It froze, and then her audio cut out, and then it was just gone.
Oh,
Yeah,
no,
that
at
was.
least I think I'm good on my end. It looks
Yeah,
it
no,
looks
you're good. I
normal.
think I think the animations just for the little talky thing on here is just a little laggy. It's kind of weird
Okay, okay.
because, like I said, this is my first time doing this for the little animations, and I'm not used to it.
Yeah, no, it's nice that they have it.
Yeah, no, this is cool. I think I'm gonna do this from now on. I like it.
Yeah.
So, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Okay, the weather is really weird because on Tuesday up here in the Santa Cruz Mountains, it was 113 degrees. And then
Okay.
today it's like in the 60s and I'm wearing a jacket and it's cloudy.
That is very similar to us. We did not reach 113. I live in the Bay Area. I live close to Oakland. And I think like earlier in the week, it was like 90 something degrees. Today, I think it's like 60 something or maybe 70. So just like way more doable.
Yeah.
But yeah, the weather has been insane and it's been way too hot.
Yeah, no. I mean, well, it's a little better for you guys because you guys are by the ocean. Like I said, I'm even though we are in Santa Cruz, where I particularly live is in the mountains, so it's
Okay.
like a 30-minute bus ride just to get down into Santa Cruz near the ocean, like
Oh, okay,
where,
okay.
yeah, where Us was filmed, obviously, a lot of people
Yeah.
know. Which is funny because that's one of those movies because a lot of people who like live in LA, whenever a movie is filmed in LA, I always hear them complaining like the geography is wrong. They got that completely wrong. But I've never
Mhm.
really understood that until my sister and I went to go see Us, and we're like, wait a minute, they're going the wrong way. Why did they end up at the boardwalk? Why did it take them all night to drive from Felton to Santa Cruz when that's a 20-minute drive? Like, we're like, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I think that happens a lot. I recently experienced that with Always Be My Maybe. That I think it was set in San Francisco, but technically some of the scenes were filmed in Canada, and you can kind of tell.
Oh yeah, you could kind of tell because I was watching that movie. I mean, I've only been to San Francisco a couple times. We're actually pretty close to each other. I think we're only like 2 hours away from each other.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, like, yeah, there were definitely times where I was like, "Is that Santa Cruz? Like, that house doesn't, or not Santa Cruz, sorry, San Francisco." Because I'm like, that house doesn't really look like that belongs there. But okay,
Yeah, like a lot of their exterior shots and like things like that seem to be San Francisco, but there were a couple scenes where I was like, this is not a very busy area, and San Francisco is always busy. That I was like, this doesn't look like San Francisco, and then I later learned, yeah, because it wasn't.
yeah, that makes sense. I could tell even watching it. Like, I was like, okay, there are certain scenes that feel a little different. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
but I mean, I don't know. I mean, I get it because I think from what I've heard, I think they like how the state of California has changed like the tax credit that filmmakers get here, so they don't film in California as much as they used to.
yeah. I think that's right. It's interesting because even though that's the case, it doesn't really change a lot of stories being told, like set in California, but they film it in other places. Like I believe in Canada, it is cheaper to film for a lot of production companies, and I'm assuming it's whatever tax thing that happens.
Because yeah, I don't
Um,
think they charge a tax over there in Canada, if I'm correct.
okay, but it's just funny because it's like they're never going to really tell like, oh, this takes place in Canada. They're like, no, this is California, but we're going to film it in Canada.
Yeah, exactly. I think if I remember correctly, the movie Kick-Ass, I think one and two, they take place in New York, and but they're filmed in Canada. Like I heard people point out, like
Mm.
if you look really carefully in the background, there are like street signs in French.
Okay,
If you
okay,
pay
that's funny.
attention. So I don't know, just funny stuff like that. But I don't know, just I don't know. It's just funny whenever a movie gets filmed in your area because we've had a few.
Mm-hmm.
Besides us, Bumblebee also got filmed here at the boardwalk as well.
Oh, okay.
The Lost Boys is famous for being filmed at the boardwalk.
Mm-hmm.
Killer Clowns from Outer Space was of course filmed around here as well. So we get
Okay.
like a lot of horror movies, but like Us was kind of special because I love how Jordan Peele actually called it Santa Cruz. Like in every other movie, they always call it by a different name. Even in Lost Boys, they like completely just make up a name for it.
Oh, really? Yeah, no, I remember when I saw Us, they really made a point to let you know, like, this is Santa Cruz. Like, it was really part of the story.
Exactly. And I just think it's funny that both the beginning of Us and Bumblebee take place in the 80s. Yet, if you've ever been to the boardwalk, you know they didn't change anything, which is kind of sad. I think that's how outdated it looks.
Oh,
That you
really?
could set it in the 80s and literally not change. They changed nothing. Like everything that was there, like all the scenery for both those movies, is like what is there right now.
Oh, that's funny. I've only been to Santa Cruz a few times. Every time I've gone to the boardwalk and it's like out of season, so nothing's open, but I've just walked there and kind of looked at the beach and stuff. Um, but I thought like, oh, they must like this is a purposeful, like specific fair looking thing. I didn't realize that they just haven't changed it since it was built.
Yeah, basically. And I
Yeah.
think it's funny that in that movie, again, another thing I noticed was that like whole Merlin's Forest thing. You can
Mhm.
tell it's there's something off about that because like every other building is on the boardwalk and that's the only building on the beach. So I
Mhm.
remember when that movie starts and she goes in there, I'm just like, wait a minute, that there's no building there. What the heck?
Yeah, I was kind of like, is that something I missed when I went? I don't remember that actually existing.
No, because I remember going to the boardwalk. I think it was off season as well. My friend and I were just walking there, and I remember seeing like machinery and stuff on the beach. I'm like, what are they building out there? And it was such a weird aha moment when I saw the movie. I'm like,
Oh,
oh, I'm like, that's crazy. That's why they were digging up in that area when I went that one time because they
yeah.
were building for the movie. That's
Oh, that's
cool.
cool. Yeah, that's really cool.
Do you have a favorite movie so far this year at all?
Oh gosh. Okay, let me think about it. My favorite movie last year, I know this is cheating because you said this year. My favorite movie last year was Eighth Grade. And I'm trying to think, oh, okay. So a movie that I saw that technically doesn't come out until I think July. But I saw it at the San Francisco Film Festival a few weeks ago was The Farewell.
I
And
am way too excited for that.
yeah, and I have to say that was my favorite movie I have seen this year. Like I really didn't I like left that film like emotional. It really connected with me and I think a lot of people are going to love it when it's actually available for everyone to see. But that was my favorite like film experience that I've seen. I feel like I'm cheating cuz technically it hasn't come out yet, but that's the thing that comes to mind at least for this year.
Right on. Yeah, I mean, I counts. You've seen it already. I mean, why not?
Yeah.
Like, was it like 2017? I think I remember putting The Writer on my list for like one of my favorite movies, but that didn't technically get released till 2018. But because of Film Independent, I saw it for 2017 because I got a screener for that.
Okay, yeah, I've never seen that film.
I love it so much. Chloe Zhao is probably one of the most underrated filmmakers of this decade. No joke.
Okay, so I remember hearing her name, but I didn't know if that was her first film, The Writer.
Second film, if I'm correct.
Oh, okay, okay,
If
yeah.
if I remember correctly, there's like another movie that she did about Native American people, like they were the main characters. And then while she was directing that movie, she ended up meeting this guy who had a head injury that was like in rodeos and whatnot. And
Hmm.
then basically went, wow, this is a really interesting story. And then basically directed a fictionalized version of what happened to him in life.
And he starred in the film,
Yes,
correct?
he starred in it, his sister,
Okay.
his dad. Like
Oh
everyone in
wow.
real life, like even another person that he knows who also got a really bad brain injury. I can't remember the guy's name. I feel really bad for that, but like he's literally like has to be taken care of like 24/7 in like a hospital. Like that's how bad.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and
Okay.
it's just so heartbreaking when you finish the movie and you're like, oh no, those were all real people. Like this stuff really happened to them.
Wow. Yeah, I think maybe that's why I really connected with The Farewell as well, because the director is basing a lot of it from her real life. Excuse me.
Okay, you're good. Yeah, no, sometimes that definitely does work, as Audrey and I talked about yesterday. That didn't really work in The Souvenir because Joanna Hogg based a lot of that off of her life. But I feel like
Oh,
in that
okay.
movie, like she was a little too close to the material because I liked the idea of it, but I just didn't like the way it was executed.
I did listen to it, and I didn't know it was based off of like a real experience. So
Yeah, I mean, we talked
that
about
makes
that in the first half, but then that, obviously that got messed up.
okay, okay, that's interesting. It is interesting when people bring in like their real life experience and how they're going to treat it. Sometimes I think that can be bad for the movie. I think there are some movies where like the person who it's about is creatively involved and it seems very obvious that they're trying to rewrite the film to make them look good or change things and it just doesn't tell as good of a story. But I didn't feel that way, at least when I watched The Farewell. And it sounds like when you watched The Writer, you felt like it was a good film overall, regardless of it actually being a very personal story.
Exactly. I mean, I get like The Souvenir is not a bad movie at all. Like I'd recommend it just to see what you would think about it. But it was just
Okay.
weird the way she played it. Cause like Audrey and I were talking about that. We're like, wait, is it because it's a different culture? Is it because they're British? Like, but then I brought up like Phantom Thread is a really similar movie that also takes place with upper class British people, but that movie has a lot more passion to it.
Yeah.
Like with
Yeah.
the souvenir, literally, he's like, "Oh, I stole all your stuff and sold it for drug money." And she's just like, "Oh, okay. Oh, I do heroin. Oh, okay." Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
just everything is just, "Oh, okay."
Where it feels like they're not really being real people, and you're like, well, what am I watching? Is this like
Exactly. Very much felt like robots reciting lines. And I mean,
okay?
obviously, that part of that is in the direction because I do want to see the main actress again because the main actress is Tilda Swinton's daughter.
That's what I heard, and
Yeah,
I'm. Is this her first acting performance
I think
or
so, and it's
okay?
I get this movie's really meta too because like I said, like her mom Tilda Swinton plays her mom in the movie. Like she's
Okay.
basically playing a young version of Joanna Hogg. Like certain conversations they have in the movie like relate to the plot of the movie.
Hmm.
And then there's that one shot I talked about with Audrey near the end where literally she looks directly into the camera and addresses the audience at one point.
Oh,
Yeah, like
okay.
at the end of the movie, like because there's this shot because she's making a movie which is based on a movie I guess Joanna Hogg also made in the 80s, so it's extra meta. And then
Oh.
like they have this dolly shot where she's telling the cameraman to push in on the actress, and then while she's doing that, we're pushing in on her.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
then she
Okay.
looks in the camera, and then I don't remember if this got into the version that got up on YouTube, but I was talking to Audrey about it because she didn't stay for the end of the credits. At the very end, after all the credits, they do like a Marvel thing where they're like, the
Yes, I did
souvenir
hear
will
you say
return.
that. That seems like so odd for that type of film, but because I didn't know they were doing a sequel until recently, and I've only heard, I've heard some people talk about it, and I think I've heard some positive reviews, but I've also heard really mixed reviews on this film.
Yeah,
So
because
it's
they're,
interesting that they're like, and we're coming out with a second one. Get ready.
I mean, again, because I think Joanna Hogg definitely has a very like distinct vision.
Hmm.
Because even though like I'll have problems with certain things that happen in the movie, I'm like, well, I could tell she did it for a reason. She didn't do it because she didn't know what she was doing.
So it sounds like it wasn't necessarily like an upsetting viewing experience. It just wasn't necessarily what you were expecting, nor may
Yeah,
it not be very good or like
um,
it's just okay.
I don't. Again, that's hard to explain because, like I said, there are people that I follow, and I don't want to name names, but there are people that I follow on Twitter that
Hmm.
are like Rotten Tomatoes approved critics that like gave this glowing 5-star reviews.
Uh-huh.
And at the same time, like I still respect and enjoy following these people, but at the same time, I'm kind of scratching my head, like, did we watch the same movie?
I really wonder because this year was my first time ever going to a film festival, and the San Francisco Film Festival is definitely a lot smaller than like Sundance or all these other big film festivals that have already happened this year that a lot of these movies are slowly coming out from. But I almost wonder if like the festival experience enhances your um viewership
A
so that
hundred percent.
by the time, yeah, so you write these glowing reviews, you saw the movie early in the year, and then when everybody else gets to see it in a normal setting, they're like, this movie was just okay. And maybe if you revisit it, you're like, oh yeah, I guess it wasn't like perfect, like how
Yeah.
I thought it was when I was at the festival and really excited. And I like at the one I went to, there were a lot of like Q&As with like the director and like people who were in the film. So that made it even more exciting. So I'm sure maybe I'm curious. Like with Booksmart, I really liked Booksmart. I saw that at the festival. Olivia Wilde came to the screening with like a lot of the main cast. So I remember when I left the film, I was like, "This is the greatest movie." You know, like I was just like so pumped because it was such a great experience seeing all those people. I haven't rewatched it since it came out to theaters. I'm sure I would still like it, but I wonder if it'd be a little bit different now that it's not as exciting, you know?
Exactly. I mean, because I've only been to Santa Cruz Film Festival, I think three times at this point, and then I went
Okay.
to Malton Fest earlier this year, and those are both smaller film festivals.
Okay.
And you definitely like, especially with something like Santa Cruz Film Festival, where they're really like tiny, tiny, like micro budgeted movies. Like you do feel a little special watching it because you get to watch it. And so
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that does add to it. I mean, I could imagine the same thing at Sundance because it's the first festival of the year.
Yeah.
So when you're the first people to ever watch this movie, like I can understand why you'd get a little hyped.
Yeah. I think that's true. I think that definitely happens, especially because like with Sundance, because it's a bigger festival, there's all these like cool events that you can go to as well. So like the whole experience can be a lot more fun. So yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. It's been an interesting year so far because like I will never call a year a bad year for film. Like it really upsets me when people do that because there are
Mm-hmm.
so many wonderful little movies every single year. Every single year, there's always going to be something that flies on the radar that's great.
Mm-hmm.
And so when someone says, "Oh, this," like everyone right now is like, "This is the worst summer ever." I don't know if you've heard people talk about that.
Yeah, I have heard that like a lot of the movies are just like meh type of movies. I will say that it seems like financially there is a thing going on, like box office wise, where it's not doing well, and I don't know how it compares to previous summers. But as far as like the quality of the films go, yeah, there are definitely films that like there was one film I still haven't seen, but I wanted to see called I believe Fast Colors or Fast
Oh,
Color.
Fast Color, yeah, that
Yes,
literally played in like five theaters.
yeah, and like by the time I had heard about the film and it was getting like these amazing reviews, I was like, "Oh, I want to see it. It should be playing around me, right?" And like it literally was being pulled out of theaters within the first week of it coming into theaters. So I never got a chance to see it. I do think it's available to rent now, so I probably should rent it.
I know, me too, because
Um,
I heard glowing things about it, but
but
it's
yeah,
just
I
like
guess that's an example of like, if we were to take the reception by everyone's word that it's a good film, it's not really fair to be like, oh, look at all these like crappy movies that are coming out because nobody saw this film. You know that you can't really lump this in there, right? It's just a smaller scale film that didn't get a lot of attention.
I mean, it was frustrating too from the distributors because they didn't really have a lot of hope in it. Like
Mm-hmm.
I had even seen like the tweets from the directors because I think it was co-directed if I'm correct. I know one of the directors was a woman and
Mm-hmm.
she was tweeting about it like, yeah, they're not gonna expand again. Like this is the only weekend that really it's gonna be playing anywhere. So please go watch it because they don't really have a lot of hope in it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's got to feel horrible as a filmmaker, like I don't know, like as a female filmmaker, and then like
Yeah.
with the movie starring a black woman, and then
Yeah.
your distributor is just like, yeah, no, five theaters, that's it.
Yeah, it's really frustrating, and I'm sure most filmmakers never imagined that part of their job would also have to be like marketing it themselves on Twitter. Like, I'm assuming they thought, okay, my film has a distribution company. They have marketing teams around them. That's going to be their job. And then for that filmmaker to have to go on Twitter and like, I mean, basically hope that people who follow her see the film is probably really disappointing.
Exactly. It's just interesting what they decide as far as the distributor goes, what they decide to put their money into as far as marketing. Because like A24 is one of my favorite distributors,
Yeah,
period.
I've liked a lot of their films.
But like there are some movies that they'll put out and I won't know about it for like a few years because they'll dump it in 20 theaters and then like I'll see it online one day.
Yeah, I remember that being a thing about oh gosh, I wish I remembered this film that is on HBO that went directly to HBO and it's from A24, but it basically had no advertising. And the star, who I believe was also in Moonlight, oh, Native Son, that's what it's called.
I haven't
So
even heard of that.
okay, and that was the guy's point. He was like, so A24, what's up? Like, why aren't you mentioning this? You guys are mentioning like Midsummer, it hasn't even come out yet, but this movie that's about to come out on HBO that you like have a deal with HBO, you've barely talked about. And I think people have not seen it because of that, because it hasn't been really advertised by A24.
Yeah, because I have HBO on Hulu. Like that's not even on like the featured page because usually when they put new stuff up, it's like featured.
It was really quiet. I still need to see the film, so I don't know. I can't speak on like the quality or anything like that. But I just remember seeing the actor specifically call out like A24, like, so what's going on? Like, why aren't you saying anything about this movie?
Exactly, because see, that just goes to show that, like, again, as much as I enjoy that company, people
Mm-hmm.
need to realize that they still are a company, they're a business. Because I see a lot of blind love for them. Like,
Mm-hmm.
whenever they put out a trailer on YouTube, literally the entire comment section is everything they make is amazing. They can never do any wrong.
Yeah. I
And
I will say that I do get excited when I see a new A24 trailer. Like when A24 is like, guess what, new trailer, I do get pumped, but that's mainly because the A24 films I've seen I really like. So it's more of just like I like them. But yes, like you're correct. At the end of the day, they're still a company. No company is perfect. And I feel like it's very hard for people sometimes to understand that, especially with social media, because a lot of social media platforms with these companies are run by a person and they tweet like they're just like a normal person. So it feels very personal. Like, oh, my friend A24. I don't know. So it's just like an exciting feeling. But yeah, at the end of the day, they're a company, so they're not perfect, you know?
exactly, because I've been following A24 since the first year. I think it was like 2012, if I remember correctly, 2011, 2012,
Okay.
when they were only putting out like 3 movies a year. Like, so I've been a fan for a while, but like I said, yeah, you gotta remember that not everything they're gonna put out is great. Especially the
Mm-hmm.
stuff they've done with DirecTV has not been very good.
I'm very interested. I think Euphoria is coming out on HBO, which is A24, I think.
I
And
think I've heard about that.
yeah, it's with Zendaya.
Oh yes, 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 yes.
And I feel like I've been hearing some mixed things about it. I think it comes out literally today or at least this weekend.
I assume
So,
Sunday because HBO only does shows on Sundays.
yeah, but I think they're starting to do things at random because, like, Los Spookies, which is another new show, is coming out today. They're really changing up their format. They used to only do things on Sundays, but now I think they're like trying to like have different special HBO days, you
And
know?
you know why, right?
So from what I can, the little I know is that they're basically, I think there's some concern about like Warner Brothers pulling their material from HBO, meaning that they'll have less things on their platform. And then two, they're trying to compete with other streaming services and make new content. Is that it?
Well, what happened? Okay, so HBO is owned by Time Warner. So
Yes.
Warner Brothers owns them, but Time Warner just recently got out by AT&T, and I think
Hmm.
it was last year AT&T released like a statement saying we want to turn HBO basically into the next Netflix. We don't want to just do shows on Sundays. We
Yes.
just want to pump stuff out all the time, which is scary to me because I'd rather have quantity over or quality over quantity.
Yeah, same.
Because
Same.
I was not happy when AT&T bought them because I remember following along because there were all these different companies that wanted to buy them, including ironically 20th Century Fox, which ended up getting a
Oh wow, that would
yeah,
have been
they
oh
were in the bidding for it. I remember that.
oh wow, that would have been so crazy to think if they did get it and then they just got bought by Disney. Like
And
that would
then
oh yeah.
yeah, I think Apple was in the running too. There was like a bunch of different companies
Oh
that
wow.
wanted Time Warner, and I don't like mergers like that. I don't like buyouts like that. Like I don't know. I just it rubs me the wrong way.
I mean, yeah, I will say like this whole Disney thing, it's a bit overwhelming because obviously when you do that, especially when you're a large company and such a large presence like Disney, it feels a little overwhelming. And that presence that they have, it's like, okay, will I be getting Disney Plus streaming? I mean, yeah, okay. But also, like, now it's like, oh my gosh, Disney, at least when it comes to media and television and film, it's like everywhere and they own everything. It just feels a little overwhelming.
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't like the way they're handling the 20th Century Fox thing because, like, I don't know if you saw that headline was I think at the beginning of this year when
Mm-hmm.
it officially went through and they completely shut down Fox 2000 Pictures
Yes.
and they fired like 4,000 people that worked in that division.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then what else was I gonna say? The way that they rescheduled everything and that like they're putting Disney movies first, and a lot of movies I was looking forward to from 20th Century Fox ended up getting pushed back to next year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like the sequel to Murder on the Orient Express, Death on the Nile was supposed to come out in December of
Oh.
this year, and it's not going to come out till 2020 now.
Oh, interesting. I didn't even know that. Okay.
Yeah, or like New Mutants, which has been in like production hell for like 2 years. Like again, was
Mhm.
gonna get released this August, but now they decided that it's gonna come out next April.
I really feel like New Mutants is going to be something they release on their streaming.
I
Or like,
no no, they
oh,
officially announced theatrical release April 2020.
did they? Okay. It just feels so weird how much it's been delayed. Like, are they going to put it on Hulu? Are they going to put it on Disney Plus? Like, it just seems like they're trying to just like shelve it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the reason they pushed it back, I think they said they wanted to do some reshoots, and it
Mm-hmm.
was difficult because I think they had to wait for Game of Thrones to finish up because Maisie Williams is in that
Oh.
movie, and her
Mm-hmm.
schedule, yeah, was complicated, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't. That's just I don't. Again, I don't know. I don't like that whole thing. Every time I hear news about like, oh, now Disney is doing this with 20th Century Fox, I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw, my sister sent it to me. And maybe while we're speaking, there's more clarity now, and I'm giving you old information. But there was a Marvel tweet that was like very vague. It looked like documents. Like they basically, if you click the link, it takes you to this document that's like redacted, like all these like sharpied out things. But you see the words like Avengers, X Men, Xavier. Like you see all these like X Men related names, and obviously the Marvel Cinematic Universe character names that we have been used to seeing, which I felt like they were trying to imply like, get ready, X Men are going to be coming into the Disney Marvel cinema universe type of thing. But who knows? Because they did like a weird vague thing today.
I had not seen that. That's really weird.
Yeah, it came out today. I don't know what it means. This information, by the time anyone listens to this, I might be like totally wrong because they did such a vague, one of those like things that they're hoping people will talk about type of release or type of tweet. So I wonder what that means, but I can only assume that since they have X-Men as a property, they probably would want to put it into their films, right?
Yeah, I mean that was basically the whole reason they bought back 20th Century Fox because for years they were trying to make a deal like, can we buy back the X-Men? Can we buy back Fantastic Four? And
Mm-hmm.
20th Century Fox was like, no.
Yeah, yeah. Which I almost can understand why, because they're like, no, these are great properties. Why would we give them away? But then with some of their execution for some things like Fantastic Four, it seems kind of like creatively maybe they needed some help, you know. But I get why they didn't want to give it away.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously, like that just kind of makes me sad that they just Marvel just had to, wait a few more years. They didn't know they were going to go out on their own and start a
Mm-hmm.
cinematic universe, and then got bought out by Disney like that same year.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just kind of sad that like because they've been, I don't know if you know this, they've been doing that for kind of decades now, trying to sell out their properties in order to try to make money because there's definitely been times where they've been like hard up on money.
Yeah, I feel like I remember hearing this, like maybe like within the 90s and early 2000s, something about I might be mixing this up regarding like their comic sales weren't maybe what they wanted, and then they weren't really getting anything through merchandising or something, and they wanted to go into like a cinematic adventure, but like they couldn't really get anybody to help back them, right?
Yeah, more or less. Because yeah, definitely, I think the '90s were a little rough. But even if you go back further, in the '80s, when people weren't really making as many superhero movies, like
Mm-hmm.
at this point, like really the only superhero franchise was Superman. Like this was before like the Batman movies ever came out.
Okay.
And at one point, do you know who Canon is?
No.
Okay, Canon was this little B movie studio run by these two guys. I think they were from Egypt. They were from somewhere out there,
Okay.
Golan and Globus. And so they made like a whole bunch of really fun, cheesy 80s movies. And at one point, Marvel was trying to sell like anybody the rights to superheroes, and nobody cared. Nobody wanted to buy the rights to anybody. And so Canon ended up buying the rights to Spider-Man because they, had heard like that was a big comic.
Mm-hmm.
But Globus didn't know anything about American comics, like they're from the Middle East. So they're like, oh, okay, Spider-Man is like Wolfman. So guy gets bit by spider and then turns into giant spider and then kills people.
Oh, okay.
And so they almost made that movie. That was almost the first Spider-Man movie.
Wow, that would have been really interesting.
And so yeah, someone had to set them straight and be like, no, 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 it's a like a superhero. And they're like, wait, what did we just buy?
Oh,
And so yeah, they never ended up doing anything with that.
wow. Yeah, no, I've never heard that story before. That would have been pretty insane.
And then do you know the Fantastic Four movie from the '90s that never got released? Do you know that story?
I've heard it through different people, but from what I can remember, I believe it was like a lot of like they like who bought it, like Vidal Sassoon's son or something,
I think
and like
it was New World Pictures at the time, if I'm correct.
okay, and
Something
like
like that.
they had to make the movie in order to keep the rights, but they had no intention of actually releasing the film. They just were doing it so they could keep the rights to the Fantastic Four name. So they made this like really cheap, low budget film that was never released.
Yeah, because I think they only had like $1 million set aside, and that was
Mm-hmm.
only like a fraction of what they wanted to, use obviously for the movie because it was supposed to be a big superhero movie. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's how it works with movie rights. You got to keep making them in order to keep the rights. And so yeah, they hired Roger Corman, who was legendary for making movies on shoestring budgets, and they
Mm-hmm.
were just like, just make this movie, but they never told anybody that it was never going to get released. So like Roger and like the actors and stuff all thought like this was
Yes,
going to be a big movie.
I remember hearing that too. That these actors, by the time the film came out, I think maybe Batman, or by the time they were recording it or something, I think Batman came out or another superhero film came out. So they were really excited, like, oh, we're in a superhero film. It's going to be like that. And then they later obviously learned that no, they had no intention of actually releasing it.
Exactly. Because there's a really good documentary. I think if I remember correctly, it's called Doomed.
Oh,
You can find it online. Yeah, I love it. It used to be on Hulu. I think you can find it on Tubi TV right now.
okay. Oh, I love documentaries, especially if it's about something like this. So I will look that up. Doomed.
Yeah, if I remember correctly. And then there's a longer subtitle, obviously.
Okay.
Do you watch Tubi at all? Because that's where you can watch it.
Actually, I have recently watched a few movies on Tubi because there was something I had to. Oh, that's it. I had to watch Showgirls because I was a guest on
Oh
a
wow,
local podcast and I had never seen it before.
that's
I
awesome.
I was a guest on a podcast called So I'm Watching the Show, and they said, "Oh, can you watch this movie?" And I was like, "Okay," and it was available on Tubi. So that's my experience with Tubi. I had never really used it before that.
Okay, yeah, because I just got into that recently, and I really dig it. I know not everybody will find stuff on there they like, but there's a lot of like B movies I like and older stuff and just really silly stuff that you can't find on Netflix and Hulu on there.
I need to explore it a little bit more because it did seem like they had a lot of things, but I was going for a specific movie. But yeah, I'll definitely check it out, especially if they have this documentary because I
Yeah,
love to watch that.
yeah, I think they do.
Okay.
I'm pretty
Okay.
sure, and you could probably find it somewhere else if they don't. I mean,
Yeah, I'll definitely look it up.
it's pretty easy to find, and then basically more or less this is the only way you can see footage from that movie.
Oh, wow.
Because again, it was never officially released. I think there's like pirated versions out there.
I always think that's so interesting. I mean, that seems like a thing that could definitely be done in the past versus today, where you could like film a whole thing and then say like, shelve it, we're not releasing it. Because that type of stuff today would get leaked, right? Like some.
Sometimes.
Oh, really? Do you
Because
think?
there's stuff that will sit on the shelf for I can't remember what the last movie we got was, but there's movies released this decade that will sit on a shelf for like 5 years and then they finally decided to release it.
Oh, I guess so. But I guess what I'm saying is that like I don't think if there was a movie that you didn't want people to see, it would just completely be impossible to see ever. You know what I mean? Like I feel like at some point it would get released or leaked.
No, I think there are definitely some movies out there, even some we might not even know about that
That's
probably
true.
are on a shelf somewhere.
Maybe. I guess I'm thinking my specific example is like George Lucas and like the Christmas Star Wars special and how he didn't want anyone to see it after it aired on TV. But obviously people recorded it and now today you could probably find like a bootleg version to watch online. And plus I think it's actually in some libraries. I went to like the Paley Center in New York and I watched it there. So I mean like obviously that was a thing that he never wanted people to rewatch, but it's too late because it was recorded, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's something that okay. I just thought of a good example.
Okay.
Uh, do you remember a few years ago when Mad Men was still on the air and Amber Heard starred in that Playboy Bunny Club TV show?
Oh yeah, yeah, whatever it was called.
Yeah, Playboy Bunny Club. They only aired 2 out of 6 episodes. I've always been curious about it, but it's literally I can never find a copy at all.
Huh. Okay, that is true. You are right. There are a lot of shows that will release like one episode or two or whatever, get canceled, and you can never find anything. Even sometimes you can't even rewatch them. That is a good point.
Yeah, I feel like other people would be curious too. Like I feel like you could make some sort of money even like selling it for like, 99 cents an episode or whatever somewhere.
Yeah, out of curiosity, I would be too, especially like if you were maybe trying to understand like the pop culture climate at that point. Like everybody wanted a Mad Men. So they had like the Pan Am show and then that Playboy Bunny show and like things like that. Like if you just wanted to like research to see like what people were doing, that would be interesting to see that type of material. So like it is weird that they don't make it available, especially because like it seems like if anything they would make money off of it.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I'm like, because I don't even care, like I said, if they put it online and charge me like $1.99 an episode, like
Yeah, yeah.
people will pay for it, like people will watch it and you can make money very easily.
Yeah, that is a good point. I wonder why they don't do that because at the end of the day, they want to make money, right? So why wouldn't they just make it available for people to watch at a later point?
Exactly. Kind of like, I don't know if you heard, like Paramount and Warner Brothers both like have a lot of older films, like classic films
Mm-hmm.
that they just won't release
Oh, really?
at all. Yeah, apparently Paramount's even worse with it. Like their back catalog of movies, for some reason they just have them sitting on a shelf somewhere. And there are people out there that are like, but I want to see this movie. Like it's a rare older movie, and I want to watch it.
Huh, that seems so odd. I don't understand what the point of that would be from a company like trying to make money unless the material was like deeply offensive or something. Like I don't understand like if it's just like a normal movie, why wouldn't you want it to make money from it, you know?
Exactly, because like even if you don't do like a physical release, like just put it out digitally for people to buy, and like there's almost no overhead in that. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's really weird. Anyway, so it's looking like it's probably time for us to go.
Oh, okay. Wow,
Yeah,
that
sorry,
was
it's
fast.
I know, yeah, it's almost 2 o'clock right now. I got to get out of this meeting room.
Okay, okay.
Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me
It,
on.
it, it was really fun. Honestly, it was really fun.
Yeah, it was great.
And I just want to say before we go, I really do love listening to your show.
Oh, thank you
Um,
so much.
because I remember I was like on vacation a month ago and I heard you on Lucy's podcast.
Yes,
And
yeah.
then that exact day, like right after I finished listening to it, I'm like, I gotta find this podcast. And so I started listening to your podcast. And then I think it was literally the day after, that's when I asked you to be on this show, just
Oh,
because
wow.
I was
Okay.
like, and your show's really good. It's very bingeable. Like whenever I finish an episode, like I always want to listen to like two or three more.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness, that makes me so
Oh,
happy.
no
Like
problem. Again,
I I always am curious like who is listening. So this is really nice. Thank you.
no problem. Okay. So again, thank you for being on here, and I hope to have you on again sometime. That'd be pretty cool.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Goodbye, everybody.
All right. Bye.